Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Money Matters. I'm Chris Hensley. We've got a great show lined up for you today. We've got with us Eric Franklin. He is with Prospero Wealth. And this is actually almost a continuation of a conversation we had at the recent FutureProof, I want to say convention, but they call it festival, right? Kind of like Lollapalooza for finance people. So that is where I met Eric. We were both at the Future Proof event and got into a conversation, and so we're going to share some of that with you today. I do want to let listeners know a little bit about you, Eric. You are the managing principal at Prospero Wealth. You oversee investments and the overall client experience. You have 23 years of experience in the tech industry, and we'll get into that, primarily at Amazon. And now you focus really on helping tech workers and business owners invest. Eric, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so maybe we ought to start a little bit. I wanted to get a little bit of feedback on FutureProof from you. What was your experience like there?
I went last year and this year. I think it's probably been the most transformational, highest leverage spend I've put into my business since going full-time a couple years ago. It's just like it's a target-rich environment in terms of talking to other owner operators, and really sort of, I'm at a very early stage with my company, only working on it full-time for 2 years now. It's just been a place where I've been able to learn from a lot of different people with different business models and service models. And many of those people I met last year became mentors to me throughout the year. So it was fun catching up with them again in year 2. And then this year, kind of the same, but even amplified. It was a larger conference, a lot more owner operators, more vendors, bigger scene. But this year is more, now that I have something that's been working, it was more about how do I enable, build the practice so that other advisors can help us reach more tech workers and business owners. So that, kind of, that's what FutureProof's been about for me the last couple of years.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm a noob to it. So this was my first year there. And I could tell you that, wow, I was really impressed. It takes a lot to get me out. I've been doing this for 20 years, and it takes a lot to get me out of the office. I always consider, like, if you need to talk to a wholesaler, that, you raise your hand. I don't even necessarily take lunches, right? Because I'm like, well, but this has been just the opposite of that. It was very, business casual. Everybody was really relaxed. We were getting to network and stuff. And so very good experience. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's in the budget that I can go back next year. Really made a lot of good context. So I'm glad to hear you giving me kind of the year before that it's been consistent, that it is a good thing there. So good. So thank you for sharing that with our listeners. We gave them a little look under the hood there as far as our practice building and stuff like that. But tell me a little bit about Prospero Wealth. And I know one of the things we talked about is that you help tech workers and business owners with financial planning. How did you come about getting into that niche?
Well, I think I got into the niche because it was the niche I came from, right? 23 years in tech, 3 different stints at Amazon, totaling 18 and a half years, startups in between and at the very end of that. So, I think it was just very natural to find people that you share DNA with and share a common language and approach to sort of like how we look at the world. So I started it on the side of my day job at Amazon 7 years ago. Actually, the announcement came up on LinkedIn the other day, and did it very, very slowly for 5 years, just with friends and family and a few colleagues. Really learned the space, what it was like to advise people, initially just in the investment space. And, it grew very, organically into something where I was spending more and more time on it, talking to more vendors, talking to more people about a broader scope of needs. And then, you know, being a product person, it's been great to sort of like think about, okay, as I learn these things from my client and I institute it as part of the product or the offering, service offering we have, how do we scale that? How do we keep giving our clients more at the same, you know, more for the fees they're paying, right? So try and keep the costs low, but try to continuously offer more. And as we scale up, I hope to be doing that even more and more. But that, you know, that's the niche. It just that's proven to be our natural. You know, where we work well with clients. We find that a lot of them are in the tech space, especially very averse to financial salespeople. So having people that speak their language and can help them with the things they're dealing with is where we operate.
I love it. I love it. I think we could go deeper with that because I know we talked a little bit about, you know, the different personality types that you work with. And okay, this is a generalization, but IT people, right? Tech people, you see a lot of them that are considered high analytics, right? How do you tailor your advisory approach to fit, you know, different personality types?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say in general, our clientele, both in the tech worker space and the business owner space, they tend to be highly educated, kind of upwardly mobile, go-getters, a lot of do-it-yourself kind of identity and approach. And so really, I think the way we tailor our approach is, first of all, we try and keep things as light as possible when they start working with us. So, you know, our planning isn't this rotor-rooter experience that takes months and months and goes through every aspect. What we try and do is do a broad survey, kind of a gap analysis of what you have in place, what you don't have in place, identify the biggest, you know, 3 or 4 opportunities every quarter, as opposed to trying to do it all at once. So try and keep all these people have, you know, demands on their time, so we try and keep that as light as possible, and sort of keep that initial engagement to a few hours. Then we go off, we start implementing against it, and then we try and have ongoing conversations sort of every quarter to sort of refine the approach, identify where the next biggest target that they need to knock down is. So that's one thing. And then on the other side, I'd just say that the products we use in the investment space and you know, in insurance planning and financial planning and all of these, they're very tech forward products, you know, so our clients kind of know, kind of demand that. They don't want somebody doing this in just producing a PDF. We try and use the best tech we can find, the best investment approaches that are the most quantifiable with long track records and reputable histories. So there's kind of this like curation element to the products we use and the investment you know, families we use that really service our market. So a lot of our value is in just filtering down the universe of possibilities down to things that make sense and that we can explain really well.
I love it. I love it. And that ties nicely right into the FutureProof conference we went to, because that's a good bit of that conference or festival, seminar, whatever you want to call it. That had to do with fintech, right? It had to do with what's the biggest and the best thing that's out there. There was a lot of questions going on about AI and that sort of stuff. So just, keeping, part of it is us as advisors keeping our finger on the pulse. What's the best platform to use when we're helping them? So that's huge. Anything else about working with tech employees that you would consider unique that you'd like to share with us?
Trying to think. I'd say the only other thing I think that's really unique about our approach is kind of the growth model for our company is bringing in other tech workers to support tech workers. So, I have a lot of Amazon clients. Those Amazon clients have gone on, in some cases, to work at other big tech companies. But we brought in another full-time advisor right at the beginning of this year. That employee came out of Stripe and was able to help a lot of Stripe employees that were, you know, dealing with a tender offer. I think it was May of this year. So he's helping them navigate the tax repercussions, doing a lot of financial planning, just a lot of general advising. So I just, you know, I think it is important to find beyond just somebody who can serve the broad space, you know, somebody who has very specific knowledge of those employee compensation plans can help you navigate the types of equity compensation you're dealing with. I mean, I know, you know, everything about the Amazon benefits plan and everything about the Amazon 401k plan. And so people are often surprised by, you know, what it's like to work with an advisor that actually knows the knobs and dials on their specific plans that are private to the rest of the world, right? So I think that's kind of that's something we're looking to build more of a expertise in as we go forward, is just like company by company, as we have more expertise and work in video chats, video meetings with people, screen shares. We're learning a lot about these plans, and we're taking a lot of notes so that we can help the next person.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I have a very similar approach to some of the state pension here in Texas. And what I find is that because I'm seeing that same type of client over and over, one, you become an expert just like you guys have with the Amazon plan, right? But then if there's any problems that bubble up, you're able to turn around, and if I think I'm hearing you say this, you're able to turn around and use that with the next client that you have, because you've kind of already crossed those bridges there, and they're able to benefit from the from where you've already been down those plans, and that's just getting better as you're bringing in more of those tech companies, and you added partners there that had experience with different companies and stuff. That sounds fantastic. I know the client benefits from that. I'm going to pivot a little bit, because one of the things we talked about was art and finance. I know you're interested in art. Do you think there's a connection between art and financial planning?
Yeah, actually. So the art space super special to me. I was a literature major in college. You know, coming up here in Seattle, sort of in the 90s, early 2000s, we had a very big art walk scene every month. So I started going to all these art walks. I had some friends who were artists and introducing me around. I just fell in love with the space. I started writing a local blog that featured our local artists and was getting sort of interviews with them out there, you know, for a number of years. So I love this space. I'd say that, you know, data-driven approaches, you know, you can have the best data-driven products, but you know, it only takes you so far. There's a lot of people in the quant space that are competing for a vanishingly small margin, and a lot of what it, you know, I think a lot of this comes down to storytelling, which is a type of art. Like, how do you put the pieces together in a financial plan and give somebody a comprehensive picture that resonates with them, and that they know, like, this is my financial plan. It's different than everybody else's financial plan, and it's different in the following ways. I'd say that was probably the biggest shock to me when I moved into financial planning from just investment management several years ago. Was I really thought, looking at the tools that, you know, and my clientele, that a lot of people will come in and look very similar. And what I was shocked by was that everybody is different. Everybody is different. Like, from externally, you might think that they look similar, they're similar age group, they have a similar job or income, but the demands that they, you know, they have from their family or their goals, they're all so different. And when you put this into a plan, even with a relatively common set of tools, what comes out is super unique. And I think that's the really fun part here, is you're working with real people and developing something unique that speaks to them.
100%. I agree 100%. I love that. There's philosophy and English before I went the finance route.
There you go.
I'm with you. And I love that. I think, once we tilt and we're in the weeds, especially with the investment management piece, it can become all about the numbers. And that's what's great. It's this job that's not. It's like you said, there's as many different stories as there are people. Everybody's stories is going to be different, and so that the artist side in us likes to create, and that fulfills that piece of us, and I think that resonates with the clients as well. We are bumping towards the end of the show, but I want to also talk to you about estate planning, because we started talking about that. I was really excited about some of the new software and the programs that came out for the estate planning that advisors are using. But we ended up having a conversation about a story that you shared about your father and how that tied into estate planning. Could you maybe share that with us for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So it's a sad story up front. So my dad passed away a little over 20 years ago, very unexpectedly at the age of 49. He was a healthy guy, golfed several times a week. We went surfing every summer, so it was just very unexpected. But he had divorced from my mother when I was a late teen, I think driving age or so. And a couple of weeks prior to his passing, he had actually finished paying off the divorce settlement, and had just gone back in and refreshed all of his estate planning documents. None of us expected to make use of it as quickly as it did, but having that clean estate plan, there were no doubts about his wishes and the way he wanted things to operate. And as bad as things were, as terrible as things were, having that clarity, as a child and for my stepmother really cleared up everything. And to this day, sort of like managing that trust was one of my first financial experiences. He was a local business owner, and he left money so that my stepmom would be well provided for, and my brothers and I would be well provided for. And so it's just like, when you see something like that done well, it leaves an impression, because I've now seen it done poorly in some other cases. Right. and certainly a huge percentage of the people that come to us, they're generally younger or starting their families. The majority of them are lacking any estate plan, let alone a recently updated one or a well-maintained one. And so it's an area that I think really brings the whole planning experience together. There is some interesting technology now come into play. We're looking at a lot of that, adding to our business here shortly. But yeah, that's an area we're moving a lot deeper on with our clients, especially as, our demos getting older as we go as well. So.
Well, I love it. I just thought that was a really impactful story, because it was an example of somebody who had done it right on the front end, and there was no bickering or infighting, at least on what the intentions were, because they were clearly stated and they had been done recently, right? And then fast forward to where you're working with clients, I'm working with clients, and we could see where, as you mentioned, a lot of people don't have any estate planning in place, and so you're leaving behind a headache, right, for your beneficiaries, your family members.
Yeah, it's a gift. Nobody wants to do it, but it's a gift, and yeah, it's terrible to talk about your mortality and to make these decisions about your health care, your medical directives and all this, but it's critical.
Absolutely. Well, and we're right here towards the end of the show. One of the things I wanted to make sure for listeners who want to find out more about you and your practice, where can they go to find out more information?
Pretty easy. It's prosperowealth.com. Prospero, Prospero, like the character from Shakespeare's The Tempest.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Now, are you guys just in Washington, or do you, or where is your licensing at? Are you all across the U.S. or
We are
specific
registered in Washington
states?
and California. We
Okay.
have clients right now in 9 states, I believe. You know, but hopefully we'll be SEC registered one of these days, and that'll be even easier.
Perfect. And I know if there's people interested from outside of that, it's as easy as them raising their hand and you know, letting you know to see if they can work with you as well. Fantastic. You know, as we're closing out right now, Eric, what have I forgot to ask you that you'd like to leave with listeners today?
That's great. I think if I were to leave one thing, I would say having an accountability partner that can get you beyond sort of the do-it-yourself approach is really valuable. And even I, as somebody who's been an enthusiast in this space for ever since my working career started, I used an advisor who became my co-founder for 8 years. It's really helps to have that accountability partner. And there is a lot, I mean, I think we have a lot of very intelligent clients. I think all of our clients are above average, you know, intelligence and good looking, right? But you know, if you look, there's a report from Vanguard that talks about advisor alpha. This report like breaks down the areas that you would, you know, that you can benefit from professional money management. None of them are things you can't do on your own, but you know, most of our clients, when they look hard at that report, they say, I'm not doing at least 1 or 2 of these things. And that is typically enough to pay for professional management, let alone the avoidance of large mistakes as you're making large scale transitions, you know, and having somebody to help you with those estate plans, with your insurance needs, goes well beyond. So find an accountability partner that can make sure that you're up to date and is staying in contact with you and keeping you honest.
I love it. I love it. Eric, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Have a good rest of the day there.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it.